Thank you very much, everyone, for joining this session. And welcome to this future mobility themed part of the session. My name's Adam Titchin. I work with Dan Storer and colleagues at the West Midlands Growth Company, where I'm the sector lead for advanced manufacturing and specific focus on future mobility. I'm delighted to be joined this afternoon, if you're in India, by two fantastic guests. Robert Henschel, Dr. Robert Henschel, is the Chief Executive Officer of Norton Motorcycles, part of the TVS Group. Good morning, Robert. And David Shepherd is the Automotive and Future Mobility Sector Advisor at the Department for International Trade. Good morning, both. Here in the West Midlands, we owe a huge debt of gratitude, I think, to the work of the late Lord Bhattacharya, who was the founder of Warwick Manufacturing Group and who forged extremely strong links between the automotive sector of the West Midlands and that of India. I think what we're doing here is building on that work, exercising those links, and we're looking to the future to see how we can increase cooperation and learning between Indian and UK firms, not just in automotive, but in all areas of transport and mobility. So, Robert, David, welcome, and thank you very much for being here. Robert, can I ask you very briefly to introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes, my name is Robert Henschel. I'm the CEO of Norton Motorcycles. TVS India acquired Norton assets in 2020, and I'm in this function as the CEO of Norton since June last year. And we are building up a very iconic UK motorcycle brand with investments of TVS at the moment in the West Midlands.
Thank you very much. And David, can I ask you to do the same, please?
Hello, my name is David Shepherd. I work for the Department for International Trade in the UK Midlands. My role essentially is as Automotive and Future Mobility Sector Advisor, and what that means is working with automotive and future mobility companies in the Midlands to help them sell more overseas, but not just sell more, but also to work more collaboratively and in partnership, and that's certainly the sort of direction of travel for activity in India.
Thank you, David. Now, before I start with the questions to the panel, I'd like to let the audience know that you can ask questions of the panel. If you write your question into the chat, we'll be monitoring that. And then at the end, we'll try to get a chance to ask some of those questions. But Robert, if I can start with you, why was it that Norton decided to move back to the West Midlands from its base in the East Midlands?
The old Norton company produced motorcycles in the castle, and this was not our preferred location to ramp up volume up to 8,000. So we had a need to find a facility. We then found something here close to Birmingham and Solihull, and we invested in a 73,000 square foot production place. It's also good to be closer to the very origin of Norton, which is only 7 miles from here.
Very good, thank you. David.
You have to understand that Norton is a very iconic brand founded in 1898, so it's good to be back to the roots.
It is. It's a very iconic British brand, isn't it? So it must be fantastic to work for. David, how does India rank among the major trade partners for the UK and for the Midlands?
See, I was thinking about this. It's huge. India is huge to us. It's hugely important. And in terms of where we're spending time, we're probably spending more time in developing relationships with India than any other territory. Certainly I am. And I think the reasons behind that, I think Andy Street talked in his video about a natural synergy, and that I think is very much the case, and it's driven by, I think, supply and demand. I mean, we had the delegation led by ACMA over here in August for the Commonwealth Games and events around that, and 24 companies, and their mission or the mission of the mission, if you like, was to look for technology partners, to work collaboratively with UK companies. And I think, again, you mentioned Lord Bhattacharya earlier on, and if ever anybody's heard him speak, you kind of hung on his every word. And I listened to him once, and he talked about there being two types of companies. those that are led by technology and those that are led by the balance sheet. My thread was really that what the UK government's done over the last sort of 10 years or so is to invest quite heavily in supporting automotive R&D, and where we're at now is that sort of technology is transitioning from development into delivery, and where the support has been really good at that sort of moving us up the TRL level. What we're looking at now is getting further up the MRL level scale, if you like, and that I think is where we have something to offer Indian companies, which are looking to accelerate their sort of acquisition of technology. So that natural synergy, I think, is that win-win of the technology that we've developed here in particularly in the West Midlands, allied to sort of market potential and volume potential in India.
Thank you, David. And that support to improve technology readiness levels and manufacturing readiness levels is a question that I'll ask of Robert shortly. But just to help us get an understanding of what's taking place in Solihull, Robert, you mentioned that you'd taken a 73,000 square foot building. Besides the assembly of bikes, what other activities are taking place there in Solihull?
Yeah, we have the big advantage here at Solihull that we have everything under one roof. So from a design studio up to the engineering organization, procurement, quality organization, everything is in here. And it is one of the needs I have in this place to find skill sets for all of these different departments. And that is a real advantage in this place because you also have to understand that motorcycle industry is always 5 to 10 years from technology perspective behind automotive. So to be in a place where automotive industry is a hub in UK is a real advantage to find all the skill set for the department I just mentioned.
Thank you. David, you were talking about TRL and MRL levels. Do you have an opinion on why Indian manufacturers are choosing to establish R&D and engineering centres in the West Midlands?
I think, well, first of all, it's got to be because of the sort of concentration of skills, and I think the thing is as well that there's a really good sort of evidence base, that it's not just talking the talk, it's walking the walk as well. I mean, at the risk of maybe heresy, but look at, for example, what Royal Enfield have achieved through having the tech centre at Bruntingthorpe. And the new model programs that have come to market so quickly for them as a result, and we're seeing fantastic stuff that Robert's doing in Solihull for TVS with Norton. Mahindra have chosen through Classic Legends to do the electric BSA here, and so on. And it's the evidence is there that you've got that skills base, you've got that creativity. And it's delivering well-engineered, creative engineered solutions.
Thank you. Robert, you've recently been successful in a bid to the Advanced Propulsion Centre. Can you tell us anything about this very exciting project?
Yeah, we've won a funded project, which is a 16 million package where our plan was with 6 partners together to develop electric superbike, and background is to reduce overall CO2 emissions and to qualify, and that was one of the major reasons why we handed in our proposal, to qualify our organization in the EV, in the electromobility area. And it's a major success, I would say, that we've won this funding, because now we have opportunity with this project to qualify our organization and to develop an exciting electric superbike, which helps us also to attract people from the market.
Thank you. And will the TVS group back in India be learning things from your project in the UK, or is it based on the idea of replacing the larger volume engines? How does that fit with the group's manufacturing capabilities, the group's ambitions?
I think meanwhile the technology exchange is in both ways. we also have in India some areas, it's getting stronger and stronger, where we get technologies from India. We use in our vehicles, but especially with our close connection to WMG and Warwick University, there's a lot of things we develop in these kind of electric future models, where we share our experience and also our kind of products later on with global markets.
Thank you. David, how do the trends in mobility in India compare with those in the UK?
I think in broad terms, you could say it's probably the same, that you know, there's that sort of push towards electrification in India, just the same as you have here, and driven by similar, perhaps different, but similar similar drivers. I mean, obviously there's a big difference in sort of in mobility. I mean, Robert talked then about an electric superbike, whereas on the other hand, I'd be looking for somebody who can develop a bike that will take 3 or 4 people on it, and the frame won't break when you go through a big pothole. So, you know, obviously there's a big difference there, and clearly, you know, the volume in India is on 2-wheelers, whereas an electric 2-wheeler here is a really high-end piece of kit. So you know, there's lots of differences in that way, but equally there's lots of synergies, I think, and lots of things we can learn. And it's not just in the vehicles, but it's also in the sort of infrastructure side, in terms of charging and storage and so on. But I you know, I think listening to Robert, you know, one point which is, and it's sort of almost a cliched term, but ecosystem here is absolutely brilliant in terms of sort of developing that technology. And in terms of trends, you know, I would think, I'd say they're sort of largely similar. I mean, George Gillespie from Hariba Mara said not long ago that in sort of R&D terms, the UK is competitive with global automotive megatrends, and I think, you know, that's going to be the same the world over. But it's I think what we've got here really to offer the Indian industry is sort of complementary competencies, if you like, and I think that's where it's a good fit, and we're seeing that. I mentioned earlier the delegation, the ACMA-led delegation that came over in August, and they're major names, and already, to my knowledge, there are sort of 3 non-disclosure agreements that have come out of it to work with UK companies, and it's on different things. I mean, the big drivers at the moment are light weighting, as you'd expect, are particularly electric motors and driveline, also hydrogen. So we're seeing a lot of kind of appetite for knowledge exchange, if you like.
Thank you, David. Robert, how has the APC project helped you in the battle to find and retain talent?
First of all, let me add something to what David said. I would like to add, as a company, you cannot invest in all these, especially mobility environment. You cannot invest in all specific areas you need to develop a product. Let me give the example of battery testing. Yeah, battery testing is a very expensive undertaking, and you need partners. And these partners are existing here in the area, which is a huge advantage. Same like battery production. You have this UK BIC created something which also helps companies to get into battery production and new technologies. Connectivity, you need proving grounds. All these things you do not invest by yourself, you rely on partnership. And that is something which is really an advantage here from that area in Norton, and we are doing the same. Motorcycle is always, or especially the non-commuter motorcycles, are very emotional products. Together with Norton as a brand and the APC funding we've won, this is really something which is the pinnacle for people looking after technology development, especially also for young people who have their first job after coming from university. This is an exciting environment, it's an exciting journey, and APC is only one project in Norton, so people learn about all the other projects we have here. And it's, but it was really, I have to say, it started a big kind of development in our EV context. Yeah.
Thank you. You mentioned that non-commuter bikes are an emotional subject. I had the pleasure of listening to Christian Gladwell, I think he's your Chief Commercial Officer, speak during the Commonwealth Games. He talked about Norton's ambitions to become a sustainable luxury brand. Is there anything that you could tell us about that? Where has this idea come from, and where do you see it going in the future?
I see in motorcycle at the moment, electrification of motorcycles, two segments. One is a segment where you talk about more than 40, 50 kilowatt. And you talk about the segment which is below 50 kilowatt, where we look at the urban mobility and commuting world. And it's not only about commuting in the city, it's also commuting from the belt into the city, and you don't need a high range. But what you need is infrastructure to charge, and you need also kind of infrastructure in the cities to commute. And I think and we see with kind of electric scooters picking up in India, that we are looking forward here to exponential growth. I think there is there's a gap in the existing product landscape of desirable urban mobility EV commuters, which is not something which is only to get from A to B, but people want to have excitement, and they want to dress on this kind of desirable products. Something will come up which is exciting and where we do not have at the moment product in the market, and that's where we want to position Norton with a modern luxury lifestyle product, exactly going to that segment.
Thank you very much. David, on that note, what are some examples of best practice in cross-border collaboration because we're not talking about a technology flow in one direction. We're not talking about a one-way street. We're talking about India and the UK collaborating and sharing the areas where both of them are experts in their respective fields. So where have you seen best practice in collaboration across the border?
Well, again, I think it goes back to the complementary competencies element. I suppose, one good example of that could be, and again, I'm sorry, Robert, for mentioning other brands, but the Triumph Bajaj relationship, I think, is interesting, and I think that's a good example of synergy, I suppose, but it's complementary synergy, and I think that would be good. I think there are other examples. I mean, we're working a lot with companies like Anand Group, Amalgamations Group, and people. There's sort of large tier one companies through ACMA, and I think where that's working well is the kind of relationships that they're forging with companies here is helping the companies here move more quickly to their next steps in terms of achieving sort of volume production and commercializing technology, but also it's giving Indian companies competitive advantage in the domestic market. So I think there are examples of where that's paying off, and certainly there's an appetite on both sides to do it, and it's working well. It's working well. But clearly, the Norton story is a living example of that as well. So I think there are quite a few good solid examples, and the key thing really is, to me, that the relationship between the two sectors, if you like, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, the key thing, you can have all sorts of logical reasons why people should work together, but it's got to feel right. And what we're finding is that we're able to sort of match companies where it does feel right to work together.
Thank you, David. And Robert, what are your plans for the UK and the West Midlands, and how can the West Midlands support you in those plans?
We have defined a 10-year product plan. We got funding from TVS, 100 million pounds, it's in the internet, to execute the plan. We will build an exciting product lineup, a mixture of exciting Norton Heritage bikes with new technology and also EV bikes, because we also have to look after young customers. And what would be, or what is helpful for us is if government and West Midlands can support us transforming skill set of people from traditional ICE knowledge, more mechanical engineering into EV and capability in electronics. That's important, because everything is getting now digital, and we need not only to gain new employees, we also need to look after the employees in the area who needs to get some skill set and training. The other thing I think which is something where I would have closer discussions is about, I'm quite sure that urban mobility will come with electric commuters. And we need to be prepared from the infrastructure and the completely city setup to provide a kind of platform that people can commute in that way. If you travel today to London or even in Birmingham, there is traffic, and I think that is not getting better. So I think we should together look at solutions how to improve commuting and to have clarity on infrastructure planning on charging is something which is important. And in that context, I know you know about the discussions that motorcycles and automotive should not be registered any vehicles with ICE anymore after 2035. That is something where I would like to discuss also to win more time to transition kind of industry to have more time for the transition. But these kind of discussions are ongoing, and overall I have to say we already get great support, especially with the APC project, but getting more clarity on infrastructure for charging would be the next milestone.
Thank you. That's very, very useful to know. I think this is probably a discussion to have offline, Robert, and not in this session. But the West Midlands Combined Authority has devolved funding from the national government, and it has the ability to pour funding into skills area that are of importance to local employers. And I think it's becoming increasingly apparent that skills in electrification of vehicles, working with high voltage, working in electric powertrains, are extremely important. And it's an area that together, I think we can work with the Combined Authority to identify relevant courses and help to define those courses where they don't exist and use funding that already exists. So I think it's a conversation that we should have. In terms of electric vehicle charging infrastructure, there is an arm of the West Midlands Combined Authority that is called Energy Capital. And Energy Capital was set up to provide oversight across the local authorities who make up the West Midlands region of the UK to help them with things like energy challenges for their constituents. So for people suffering from fuel poverty, for instance, energy poverty, but also for businesses, and supporting the councils in the rollout of electric vehicle charging infrastructure is one of their ambitions as well. So I think a conversation with those guys would be helpful in those terms, and I'd be happy to help set those up. Now, that's brought me to the end of my questions. I've seen Chris's face pop up just in time. Chris, have we seen any questions come in from the floor?
Yeah, absolutely, we do, and I'd like to bring in Arnab now. So Arnab runs a commercial EV company over in India. He's recently raised $28 million, and he's got a question, basically wanting to understand about the benefits and the options that are available. So I don't know, Arnab, if you're there, if you can turn your camera on, if you wanted to ask any particular questions. Is he there? No. So again, well, his question was all about sort of he's looking at setting up micro factories all over the globe to help in terms of their electric commercial vehicle. So I guess the question was to you, Adam, and to David, in terms of what support is available in the UK for that business and what would attract that business to obviously set up in the West Midlands.
Well, I think what we've heard from Robert this afternoon is that one of the major benefits for setting up a business focused on electrification of vehicles in the UK is proximity to skills existing. There's more work to be done, I think, on skills in the West Midlands as there is everywhere in the world, but proximity to existing skills in specifically automotive, proximity to leading research centres. I know Robert mentioned working with WMG. I mentioned Lord Bhattacharya earlier in the session. And the UK government is pouring quite literally hundreds of millions of pounds into supporting research and development in manufacturing technologies for electric vehicles through the Advanced Propulsion Centre, well, rather through the Automotive Transformation Fund, and also into research and development for technology through the Advanced Propulsion Centre, which is the project that is AP19, Advanced Propulsion Centre 19, which Robert mentioned earlier. So through the proximity to existing skills, existing capability, and the opportunity to pull on levers from the national government to support R&D and manufacturing capital investment projects, I think those are the reasons why you'd look seriously at the UK and the West Midlands as a place to establish a microfactory.
Okay, superb. And then we had a question from Samir. He runs electric EV. They're focused on powertrains. So to your point about EV, and maybe David, you could sort of pull this one in. He says that they've got two different types of electrification they've created, and they're looking to internationalize their business right now. So I guess, would that be the APC, or would there be opportunities with obviously WMG and MTC as well around that?
Well, I think the answer to all of those is yes. I mean, the key thing really, and it's probably more Adam's territory than mine, but the infrastructure is here to help people realise those things, not just from the point of view of funding, not just from the point of view of sort of the strengths of the universities, but also the local supply base in terms of putting together a sort of a collaborative team to do these things.
Yeah. And do you want to expand a little bit, either Adam, David, or even Robert, on one of the things that when I came to the West Midlands plus the Commonwealth Games that I was amazed by was the amount of test bed facilities that there are there. Obviously, Hariba Maya. I was amazed by the MTC. The fact that I could go and experiment and use very expensive equipment without actually having to purchase it myself. So maybe that will be a sort of a big draw as well. So I don't know who wants to sort of comment on that. Robert, you look like you're itching to talk about that one.
Yeah, and my background is also electronics, and I developed batteries before in my former job. So battery testing is a major investment, and there are many tests necessary to make a system at the end of the day safe. And that is normally something you rely on partners, and you do not have in-house because there's no business case for that. And all of that is given here. And you also need to do vehicle testing. It's not only about battery, it's about vehicle testing at the end of the day, where you need very expensive, complex kind of test equipment and proving grounds. And it's a combination of all of that, including the supply chain, as you said, where you get from electronics to high voltage components, everything in very short time in local market to be prepared, to be honest, later on to find a more cost-sensitive solution. But it's a very good place to start this execution of this business, because everything is very close and the partner landscape is there.
Fantastic. And David, what about on the autonomous vehicle side? Because obviously that's a big part of the current sort of conversations that are happening. So have you got any sort of, how does the UK compare to others on that? And then after that, I want to just bring in Vibhuti as well, who runs Blusmart, who's got a question as well. So sorry, David, going on to you.
Well, I think and particularly in the Midlands, as we have that sort of corridor for testing on public roads, and I would say probably we're upper quartile, if you like, in terms of connected and autonomous mobility development and testing. We've got sort of a comparatively relaxed attitude to testing driverless vehicles on public roads, which is giving real-time experience. There's a huge amount of investment gone into places like Hariba Myra, Cranfield University, and so on, in terms of developing connected and autonomous test beds. I mean, if anybody gets the chance to go around the thing at Myra, take it, because it's a fabulous experience. And the universities too. I mean, there's an awful lot going on in terms of development, and that again now is transitioning to from development into delivery. I worked last week with a company that's now signed an NDA with an electric bus company to develop autonomous systems, and they're happening. I think the world's first export of an autonomous vehicle was from a company in the West Midlands.
Wow. Well, I can attest to that. It's coming through. I've recently took ownership of my electric vehicle, and that has the automatic braking, and will sort of, as I come down a hill by my house, it automatically knows it's at 30 miles an hour and will slow me right down without me having to do anything, which is absolutely fantastic. Vibhuti, do you want to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about BluSmart and what you're looking for, if you're on the line?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you. So at BluSmart, we are an all-electric ride-hailing company, and we run EV cabs on our platform. So I wouldn't be able to give a lot of insights on how cars are manufactured, but yeah, it's very interesting hearing all of your reviews and your ideas around the cars and the new advances that are happening in the EV space. So yeah, I think that's all that I have to say for now, but I'll definitely jump in if there's anything that I would want to add on.
Fantastic. And Adam's going to be over in India in a couple of weeks' time as well, so we'll arrange any one-to-one conversations or follow-up that needs to have
for sure,
on that.
For sure.
Adam, just coming back to that sort of, and for you, Robert, coming back to that point about access to talent, we've just done our ease of doing business survey for the UK, so the Indian companies in the UK, and obviously access to talent continues to come up as, you know, as a challenge across the UK. Robert, how are you going about sort of recruiting all your engineers, and as you gear up and training apprentices, etc.? And then Adam, maybe you want to finish off just by talking about the universities in the area, and sort of what partnership opportunities there are there. Robert, over to you.
Yeah. So also from my former job, I'm used to work very close with university. So you need to understand the actual projects being undertaken in the universities. And for example, in Warwick University, there was a motorcycle project, and young students built an EV bike. So that is it's a very good source for us, and we gain people from that, and they immediately start picking up here with the APC project. Yeah, so it's about maintaining network with the universities. We also establish close link to our Northern India team. So we have established also a team in India. So it is also exciting for the young people to work globally. That is something we offer. Yeah, it's not only working. We are strong pushing people to have this international exchange with TVS and our Northern India team. And overall, it's about I have to say, to find challenges to find the right people, because we have quite a high pace at the moment as Norton. Yeah. And you need some kind of level of ambiguity, and that means we have, when you found the right person or the right student or the right expert, and he enjoys this environment, it's quite a sustainable solution for us. Yeah.
It is indeed.
Yeah.
Fantastic, Robert. Apologies, we're going to have to leave it at there because I think we're about to be chucked into the other room. So